just a great opportunity to, get to know the great people who run the businesses we fund. And this is expected to be casual. And so feel free to chime in with questions as you have them, and we'll get started.
Great. So I'm gonna be leading the conversation today. And so I think at the very beginning, what we'll do is we'll just kick off and let today we have three companies. I don't know if we might need to wait a couple minutes. I haven't seen Zaina from one of our companies join yet. Zaina, if you're there, I'm working on multiple screens, so just come off mute and tell me that you're here. But otherwise, we will start with the first two. But today we have Nova Vita Labs. I think present we've got Dr. Trill Paullin, and I think the CEO, Dr. Crane, is going to join. And if not, then Trill's amazing, and she'll be able to answer all the questions and give us nice insights into their business. But we also have Andrew Parkinson from Sifter Solutions. And the third one, if she joins us, will be Zaina Musica with Magic Hour Tea. And so I think since I can see that Trill's here, Trill, if you kind of want to go off mute, just introduce yourself, kind of the founding team and what you guys are doing at Nova Vita Labs, just high level, and then we'll go on to the next one.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Trill Paullin. It is an honor and pleasure to get to speak to everybody today. Some of you I know, so wonderful to see some friendly faces. Hi, Denise. Hi, Molly. I come by way of Boise, Idaho, from the beginnings of my founder journeys, and now I'm in Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. So have some roots in Idaho, and my family is in Idaho. I have a PhD in cellular molecular biology. I am a serial founder, and Nova Vita Labs is one of my very, very not only is Nova Vita Labs the perfect culmination of finding a lab and space and founders in the Triangle, but also I'm very excited about the direction that the company is going and the progress that we've made in a very short period of time. So Nova Vita Labs was founded, we're right at 2 years actually. I think it's probably an anniversary date coming up very soon that I need to look up and celebrate with everybody. And so essentially the founders include Dr. Crane. So Dr. Crane is an actual MD. He is a practicing MD. He is in Missouri. We have Tracy York. She is out of Detroit, and she is a regulatory expert as well as have been in the regenerative medicine space for over 25 years. That's actually how I came to find Nova Vita, because her and I worked together in Boise in a past startup life. And then alongside her comes Dan Pepok, and he is a sales rep and has been in the sales business in the regenerative medicine space for the same amount of time, about 25 years. And so the team essentially came to me and said, hey, we're looking to build a regenerative medicine company based on the needs of Dr. Crane and his cohort and the providers that kind of fall under his similar umbrella, and said we'd like to do it in the biologics space. And so we stood up the lab here in the Triangle and started building the team here. And essentially what we did is we invented, to date, two and more counting, hopefully, products. The first product is a regenerative medicine product that's used in clinic and has an IND, which is an investigational new drug application with the FDA for knee osteoarthritis. And this product is actually derived from amniotic fluid. So think full-term birth, that meets all of the requirements of the American Association of Tissue Banking. And we go through a proprietary processing technique here in the lab in the Triangle. And then those products get ultra frozen and sold directly to providers to use for indications such as knee osteoarthritis. We just literally last week, which is very exciting, signed a white label agreement for this to now go into a hair indication. So we're filing the IND for hair regrowth treatment for injections this month. If all goes well, I'll knock on wood. And we're very excited about that. And with that agreement comes a very large manufacturing agreement as well. And so looking some exciting cash flow into the lab. And the second product that I want to mention, and then I'm happy to answer questions and pass on to the other founders, is we actually have the capabilities in the lab with a peptide synthesizer. So think like a peptide is a fraction of a protein, and oftentimes peptides can be used for different treatment options across the board medically. And so we have a synthesizer, so we can make any peptide. You name it, I can make it in the lab in about a 24-hour period. And so what we've been able to do is utilize that technology alongside our kind of clinical expertise and R&D work in order to build new peptide complexes for unique cases. And so an example of this is that same company that's white labeling our amniotic fluid for a hair injection came to us and said, we really need an active ingredient for a hair growth serum and a shampoo and conditioner. So we went to the drawing board and built them a very specific hair regrowth peptide complex that now is going into their shampoo, conditioner, and serum and is launching in Q1, which is very exciting. I'll be in California next month for their national sales meeting as they get prepped for this big launch of this product. So, and that company is called Express A. So if you want to check out any of their products, and their website launches for the new products is coming soon too. But they are in market right now with the nutraceutical, and we'll come to market with our white label AF and our peptide. So as we're looking at expanding in 2026, the big pieces is one, really nailing this manufacturing agreement for the white label. We have additional white label opportunities at the door right now. So we want to make sure we get this one really just perfectly out of the park. And then we'll look at closing these additional opportunities for other white label potentials and more drug indications as these partners come to us. And then we're also available and looking for additional partners who may be interested in the peptide side of the house, more unique and proprietary peptide blends for specific use cases. So as I mentioned, happy to answer questions. I'm in the weeds in all parts of the company and run the team here locally. So happy to answer questions and to dive in wherever you'd like. And I appreciate Sage Growth Capital coming in. They were a huge part of the next stages of the company to be able to get us to this licensing agreement and get us into the next steps. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Trill. Andrew, do you want to go? I see you're here.
Hi, everyone. Andrew Parkinson, one of the founders of Sifter and CEO. And first of all, Trill, I'm excited to hear about your knee arthritis solution, because I've been struggling with knee arthritis every time I try to run. So hopefully that will be a great solution for me. So thanks. I just have a couple slides I thought that I would present to kind of describe what Sifter does and where we are. But basically, the problem we're trying to solve is kind of twofold. One, as you probably all know, chronic disease conditions really are at a critical level, both in cost, prevalence, and most of it is due to poor diet. And because of that chronic disease, there's just a ton of medical spending, $4.1 trillion. And almost a third of the folks out there who are on some kind of food assistance program suffer from a chronic disease due to the diet. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that many of these food and nutrition assistance programs, the food banks, the pantries, et cetera, really aren't that efficient in providing healthy or nutritious food to their recipients. And what's really needed and what we're trying to build is the technology that really enables us to put more nutritious food on the table of those in need by scaling what we call as healthy grocery shopping. And if you flip to the next slide, Bryce, it kind of talks about what we do. So as I said, we built a platform that really makes it easy or makes it possible to scale what we call healthy grocery shopping. And the platform kind of is based on the knowledge that my brother and I, and really the whole Peapod team built. We started Peapod, which was an online grocery company back in 1990, really enabling grocery e-commerce back then. As part of that journey, we really wanted to help people find foods that fit their specific diet. or allergies, things like that. But the data wasn't very good, the label data, so that we could tell them what's in a product wasn't good. So we started a second company called Item Master, which we collected the data off all of the consumer products and then syndicated it out to retailers, hoping that they would build it into their e-commerce platforms and everything else. But what we found is that the retailers really didn't have the capabilities to build a functionality that matched product to diet to health. So we landed up, we sold Peapod, we took it public and then sold Peapod to Ahold, which is a Dutch, they own some retailers on the East Coast of the US. We sold Item Master to basically, which was a competitor. And then we started Sifter, really with the goal of making healthy grocery shopping easy and scalable. So what we do, kind of, if you look on the left, is we link what we consider healthcare diets to specific grocery foods at the UPC level. So we know what's in the product, what ingredients are in there, what nutrition's in there, and we match that against 150 different diets, and inclusive of things like whether it's eligible for SNAP or eligible for a healthcare benefit that might be on a card. And we're available, at 30,000 stores. We have the inventory. We know what's in those stores, what's sold, and what products match what diet. We've also built the functionality like both desktop, but also what we call scan by diet, or we have something called Snap Companion, where you can scan any product in the store. It'll come back and tell you whether it fits your diet, whether it's eligible for a SNAP subsidy or a healthcare subsidy. And if it's not, it will also recommend products that do fit that are in that same category. So everything we've built is evidence-based, regulatory compliant. We have Judy Seybold, who joined us as our Chief Nutrition Officer, has been in the business for 30 years as a chief dietitian. And she actually worked with us at Item Master. And we've also brought on board, I think we have about 15 or so employees that are, many of them are from Peapod or Item Master. So there's a deep knowledge inside our company on how to build this kind of grocery platform. It's all API first, or you can white label it, but it's a SaaS platform so that it can be integrated into anyone else's platform, whether it's a retailer's e-commerce platform or loyalty platform or a healthcare application to help people be well. Importantly, as I mentioned, it is both desktop or mobile because a lot of folks may use it, a dietitian may use it to prescribe foods. But the market shifts that we're addressing today, and there are many of them based on our technology, are kind of listed here, but you probably read about how the states are now offering certain waivers that only allowed their SNAP funds to be spent on specific products. It used to be you could spend it on everything except alcohol and tobacco, but now they're setting rules like you can't spend it on sugar sodas or certain desserts or cookies and things like that. So it's hard for the consumer to know at shelf what qualifies or doesn't qualify. So we're working with the states and others to deliver an application and deliver what we call the restricted product lists that go to the retailers and are uploaded into their point of sale so that they know whether the product is eligible or not. You have the USDA, you probably saw the news with them releasing the new MyPlate, like what's considered healthy in terms of food products. We incorporate all of those rules inside of Sifter as well. And then you have MAHA with HHS kind of now focused on the labeling, what can go in products, what artificial ingredients need to come out of products. So we track all that, and we're able to tell the customer whether there's a certain ingredient in their product or not. And we also help the brands reformulate their products by telling them how much nutrition density is in their product, what ingredients they may need to remove to comply with MAHA. CMS, Medicaid, Medicare, they're also coming out with a whole bunch of new rules on what can you issue a benefit for, like a dollar amount. You can't just issue, in the sort of food as medicine business, you can't just issue it on any food, it's got to be food that's considered healthy. So we are able to power the cards that put the approved product lists on them so that those programs can be made operational. And then you have a lot of food from the payers or the insurer side, as well as the Medicaid and Medicare side. You have these food as medicine initiatives, most of them pilots right now, where they are issuing cards or delivering produce baskets to help improve people's health in order to drive down the medical costs that are happening. And the last trend you've all seen is the GLP-1. With GLP-1s, it's having a big impact on what people buy, but it's also having a big impact on what manufacturers are trying to produce in terms of formulas that are compliant with someone that's on a GLP-1. So our business is kind of broken down into 3 verticals: healthcare, prescribing healthy products; healthy food benefits, powering the food benefit cards; or e-commerce, where someone can just order products that are compliant or eligible for a certain program. And then we're working with brands and retailers to help them reformulate or promote healthy products. And our model is really kind of monthly fee plus a variable based on the use. And just some quick sort of examples: MedImpact, which is a PBM, and they prescribe, they provide these systems at pharmacies to issue prescriptions. Well, what they're going to do with Sifter is they're going to issue a prescription, but also a food prescription at that grocery store for eligible products that would fit whatever medicine that they're deploying. Able is a IBS a platform that uses our data to, once they know what doesn't work for you for IBS or FODMAP, they use our data to tell people what products they can eat and where they can buy them. About Fresh is a benefit card. We power that card with our approved product lists. And then on the brand side, we're working with Kraft, Pepsi, General Mills to help them formulate healthier products. And we just signed up a wholesaler grocer, associated wholesaler grocer, who is using us to code their private label products that are eligible or not eligible for SNAP, so that they can provide that to all of their retail clients. So that's kind of what we do, and happy as we discuss here to answer any questions as we go along. Really love working with Sage. One thing I'll mention is that I love the model because it's based on our revenue and our success. And obviously, in our first 2 companies, there was quite a bit of dilution that occurred to the founders based on going the VC route. But I think the thing that I really like is that any startup is hard. We know that, and you go through cycles. And we went through one cycle where last year we had a large client which we lost in mid-year. Not at our fault, they just shut down their program. So we lost that revenue, and that would have been a very difficult thing if I had to pay back, debt that wasn't based on a kind of a revenue run rate. And Bryce, I'm happy to tell you that we signed MedImpact at the end of this year, which was a big contract. Doesn't make up fully for the Inmar contract that we lost, but it's exciting to see the kind of the traction that we're now getting.
Awesome, Andrew. Yeah, you're kind of jumping the gun on one of the questions I'm going to ask here in a second, but let me see. Did Zaina join us? I saw there was an iPhone. Zaina, if that's you on your phone, feel free to go off mute and introduce yourself. If not, skip over you. All right. I don't think it was
She
her.
was traveling. She was at a conference, so she was joining via car. So she might have just got set up. Yep.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess, Andrew, you started to talk about it, and Trill, you also commented briefly on it. But I guess the first question that I wanted to ask you both is if you could kind of just, share a little bit more insights on your fundraising journey, and when and how did you, know about Sage Growth Capital, and ultimately kind of what was, now we've obviously made an investment, but you can also talk about, how have you deployed those funds? Kind of what has been the use of funds and benefits to both your businesses? And I guess maybe we can just go back and forth. So maybe Trill, I'll let you respond first.
Perfect. That sounds great. Andrew, love what you're building with Sifter. That's fabulous. And yes, let's definitely stay in touch on the knee osteoarthritis. We get you over to Dr. Crane's clinic. So on the fundraising journey for the company, out of the gate to get the lab started and to get our feet off the ground, each of the founders put in their personal capital. And then we pushed forward into getting the company up, running, and then we were revenue generating pretty quickly. So the beauty of the type of product that we create is that it can be sold. There's many layers and levels to the FDA, and the first being that we can go to market as a topical use only, directly to clinicians right out of the gate once we have hit all of the metrics required by the FDA and the American Association for Tissue Banking. So once we had done that, we were revenue generating really quickly, and so there was less of a need for more like traditional fundraising routes as it relates to like a typical seed, Series A, so on and so forth. And so instead, as we push forward into then the IND to get to that second level of the FDA, where we're like, okay, we're a topical use. This is how you can utilize this in a clinic today. Into now it's an injectable, now it's a drug. To make that leap, we needed additional inventory, additional testing of the products, and then the push into that actual filing and all of the fun that goes with a clinical research study and the inventory to support it. And so that's where we came to Sage Growth. I actually know Sage from my time in Boise, Idaho, and my other startup, which is Free to Feed. And so very familiar, and I've pitched many times in the Boise area. And so that's how I got to know Sage Growth and many of the founders of the organization. So it was an easy fit for me to be like, actually, I know a really great opportunity for us to be able to bring in capital without it being, massively dilutive to the company. And because we were revenue generating and we hit the standards for Sage, it seemed like a really good fit. So I made that connection.
Awesome. Andrew?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I think I was introduced to Sage through John Furton, who lives in Utah, and I think he may have done some work with you, but he's our COO, kind of president, and runs our operations. So that's how I think I found you. I wasn't really familiar with the recurring revenue sales, funding. And, as I mentioned in our history was that the last two companies were fairly dilutive because we went the venture capital route pretty much only until we took Sifter public. With Sifter, I wanted to avoid, I wanted to have more control and less board meetings that didn't result in much getting done. So, we funded it a lot ourselves initially. We eventually raised some venture capital before we jumped on board with Sage. And, I looked at different alternatives, including venture debt and other things like that. But once I learned about your model, I said, well, this seems like a great alternative, given it kind of flows and fluxes with our revenue, which can be pretty choppy. We still, as a company, need to raise capital in order to sort of accelerate and build more features and functionalities that are on the table. So we are still looking for capital that'll, it probably wouldn't work inside the Sage model because we don't have enough revenue to pay back. But I think what we're finding that's been hard for us on the venture side, I guess, would be that we had a big drop last year from the year before. We were running around 2 million in recurring revenue in 24, and because we lost that big climb, we dropped down to 1 point something in 25. So most VCs aren't really interested in investing in a company that isn't growing rapidly. So this year, I think we're going to grow rapidly because our base is lower. But I think raising capital in 25 was difficult to go any other way.
And could you both also maybe talk a little bit about how you've used the funds?
Yeah, our funds went directly to inventory and being able to build out our inventory for our clinical studies and trials and to push forward into additional revenue. So that's directly where all of that went.
Yeah, ours went into really running the operations and building certain features that we knew clients like MedImpact that just signed were interested in. So that's how we utilized it.
Excellent. And I guess now, Andrew, you were kind of talking about, the challenges and expectations for this year, but maybe could you, the purpose of these Meet the Founders, right, is you also have an opportunity with, the investors in our funds, right? And it's also an opportunity, right, that we can also make the connections later on and moving forward, because some of them may be able to assist with some of the, your goals that you have for this upcoming year, whether it's fundraising or finding new talent or whatever. So could both of you kind of also talk about kind of what is the next milestone and what do you need to get there?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the first swing. For us, the next milestone is executing on the licensing agreement for this white label into the brand new IND. So it's a big lift for us to have like a new indication, a new IND with the FDA and those discussions. So that's our biggest next step. And then as we pull out of that, so that'll probably be the entirety of my Q1 is going to be executing on that. We're right now manufacturing to hit the purchase order that they put in. They purchased 600 vials of product from us out of the gate, and so we're in the middle of manufacturing our little faces off in the lab to hit that number in a short period of time. And once we do, then the next steps for us is going to be a kind of rinse and repeat of the other opportunities that are at the door for a similar type of partnership for other use cases. And so right now we're at an interesting inflection point of once Q1 is done and the licensing agreement and clinical trial is like off to the races and good to go, then the next steps for us will be deciding the next product expansion, which the two directions that we're leaning towards is either additional capabilities as it relates to the peptide manufacturing. So the ability to do purification and to increase manufacturing capabilities on the peptide side of the house. Or if we launch a new biologics product, there is a desire need in the clinical space for other products that are similar to what we've created, but tailored a little bit for different use cases than like knee osteoarthritis, for example. And so we're literally in the middle of discussions with different partners and potentially with investors to see which direction is going to be best for us, because it's likely not going to be both at the same time, I hope, for my own sake, but deciding which direction is going to be best. And then that will really decide how much funding, if any, we're going to need to be able to bring in.
Thanks, Real. Yeah, and on our end, we're really focused on one, running pretty lean as we can, and selling what we've already built. So in the areas of like healthcare, prescribing food, and what we're doing with MedImpact and other payers is making it easy for dietitians or hospitals to prescribe food to folks based on their diet when they leave the hospital or if they're part of a food assistance program. The on the benefit side, the healthy benefits, we're trying to roll out a pilot right now of a healthy, we call it health friendly benefit card that has a specific approved product list that's healthy foods that is being sponsored by a lot of the community-based organization, the food assistance programs out there. Really to get learning, but we've basically built the tech, and what we've learned is that there's a lot of interest in scaling the food as medicine, or what we call nutrition security programs, but they need to see evidence that the tech works. So we're focused on that, and also as part of that, the SNAP eligibility for retailers and for CBGs, because there's a huge focus right now on how SNAP dollars can be used. It represents, almost $100 billion worth of food that's purchased at retail. So it's a program where we found that retailers really now care about being able to allow people to learn in store whether something's eligible for SNAP and or other diet. And then the last area is we've built something called Sifter Labs, which helps Kraft and Pepsi and others analyze the nutrition or the nutrient density of their products, as well as the impact of different ingredients or taking out ingredients. So we're really just focused on making that happen. Additional capital will be helpful for sure for us to kind of accelerate the sales into these platforms and then build in anything that's asked for. But our philosophy is now is a bit of, we only build it if someone's going to pay us to build it.
Certainly. Well, thanks you both. I'm going to ask one last question, but I am going to open it up to a Q&A. So anyone on the call, right, if you have any questions that you want to ask either Dr. Paullin or Andrew, feel free to start putting them in the chat, or, after this last question, we can just go live and you can come off mute and ask them directly yourselves. But I guess because I don't get a lot of FaceTime with the portfolio companies after we've made the investment, because that's what our portfolio manager Jocelyn takes over now. But as both of you are serial entrepreneurs, right? You've navigated the space of fundraising, and you've seen a lot of different vehicles out there on the market. But I am curious if you could just give a couple comments about how you thought about Sage's model when you first saw it, just from a different type of model that's, a lot of people don't know about it. But when you came across this the first time, what kind of was your initial feedback on how we do our investments here at Sage Growth Capital?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is in my first traditional startup, went through an accelerator program that had a really high cost basically to the dilution of the company. So from an accelerator program into then a pre-seed, and at the end of the day, really having to have conversations around the fact that because those things were so dilutive, we may have even fundraised ourselves out of opportunities to include, for example, a lot of the SBIR grants require that the founders own at least 51% of the company in order to even apply for the grants. And so you can end up basically funding yourself out of a lot of non-dilutive opportunities, unfortunately. And sometimes as a founder, you're finding that out the hard way. And so this time around with Nova Vita, one thing that was super, super clear is how do we make sure, since we are a science forward company and those are opportunities that are going to be at our door, how do we make sure that we don't accidentally close those doors prematurely? And this was a perfect opportunity for that. And so as soon as the founders and got to a space of yep, we're ready, we are revenue generating, but an additional inflection of capital would be really valuable for us, and we would fit this model where we would be able to turn around, because we're creating inventory and we have a really strong sales pipeline. And really around this time we were low on inventory, and that was a little bit scary too, of oh no, we ran out, and what a wonderful problem that is. That this was a perfect way to find a solution to that without giving up our shirts as it related to equity in the company and not closing any doors for us.
That's really interesting about not being able to apply for some of those grants if you're under 51%. I didn't know that.
Most don't.
Yeah. By the way, before I forget, one thing we did was apply for the R&D credit. And I think we've gotten that for the last 5 years. And that's been a huge help in terms of funding. It's, basically pays for your FICA. And so reduces your benefits. I don't know, have you applied for those?
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, for us, as I said, I wasn't really familiar with Sage's model. And it's funny because when I first brought it up to the two VCs that were on our board, but also the VCs, they really didn't like the model because it doesn't fit their equity ownership requirements, basically. So they were actually discouraging at first, but for all the reasons that Trill said in terms of dilution and flexibility, I researched it. I know there were some competitors to what Sage did, but frankly, I liked it because I met with, I guess, Bryce, you and Molly, and you seemed very reasonable and would be fun to work with over the coming years. So I thought it was a good opportunity to test the model. It wasn't as much capital, obviously, as we had raised through VC or through our own contributions, but I think it's been a great way to go forward. And if we could raise enough revenue to justify more investment, I would go that route versus any VC route going forward.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I'm sure your VCs probably wanted you to take more money from them, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of usually the take our money, not theirs. But we actually don't compete a lot of times with VCs, right? I mean, it's great if VC-backed companies come to us and want to utilize it for growth, right? But it's not like we're competing with them because they're going to be writing checks way before, some of these companies are commercial, right? And post revenue, and we can only do deals. But at that point, I'd like to invite anyone in our audience, if you'd like to ask Andrew or Trill questions regarding their business, please feel free to come off mute or raise a hand or throw it in the chat. Okay, I do have the chat open. Sorry, I was just making sure I'm getting those. If not, I am just going to real quickly, while we're all here before people take off, again, if you have questions, just jump off. But before you leave, thanks again for attending our first Meet the Founders. It really is an opportunity that we want to, provide more opportunities where you can actually meet some of the companies that we're investing in. And we're going to start doing these on a quarterly basis. And so the next one, we've already earmarked it for April 15th, which if you haven't received a calendar invite, I'm sure we'll be sending one out soon just to be able to get that blocked on your calendar. The other one too is if you're an accredited investor and you're not involved in any of our funds, if you'd like to learn more about investing in revenue finance or how you could potentially participate and work with us, I'd invite you to attend our next AMA meeting, which we're going to have on February 11th, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Other than that, if you know of any companies or have entrepreneurs in your network that are looking for capital and you think that they could be a good fit for our model, certainly invite you to reach out to us or to send them our information. We're always happy to get referrals. It tends to be some of the best sources of deals that we get. And if you are already an investor in any of our funds, I know we've been starting to promote this a little bit, but we are trying to formalize a little bit better of a network between the folks in our network and how they can potentially support our portfolio companies, either from their own skill sets or potentially making introductions, when they're doing their next capital raises. I invite you to fill out our Sage Advisors form. Other than that, I would invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and continue to receive our updates. I'm seeing the chat. Sue is congratulating both of you. If you guys can't see that, she's unfortunately not able to participate in the QA, but she thinks you guys both have very impressive companies. So kudos to you, Andrew and Trill.
Hey, Bryce, can I make one quick pitch on just so we've started just if anyone's interested, we've started a not-for-profit called healthfriendly.org. It's health-friendly.org. Really what we're trying to do is help scale up the community-based organizations, the food banks, the everything, by providing them with our technology at a very low cost to no cost. And we use philanthropic funds to really kind of subsidize that. But if you come across people that are interested in food or nutrition assistance and helping out on the community basis, we'd love to talk to anyone that has interest in that. It's not an investment, it's really a donation.
Okay, great. If you also want to send us that information offline, we can also
Yeah.
see where we can help you promote that too.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, you don't need to listen to me anymore. But thank you, Trill and Andrew, for participating and giving us your time. We wish
Thanks,
you the
everybody.
best of luck.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you as well for your support.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure. All right. Well, thanks again.
All right.
Wish you all
Bye,
the
everyone.
best. Bye.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks.
everyone.
Bye.